Could take a call, he could answer
Dr. David Clark.
Mr Chair, I rise to continue in this debate because it's shaping into quite an interesting debate, and I personally find it to be quite shocking that the Minister has not taken a call yet on this matter, because it is consistent again with the issue of the paperboy tax. And I want to draw a parallel here because there is a pattern emerging in this legislation. I've said many favourable things about this legislation. I've said that there is little to disagree with. I've been appalled at the level of tinkering as opposed to real change, but said on many occasions through this debate that it's hard to oppose the government on much of this because a lot of it is common sense. Well, here we have another example, as my colleagues have pointed out, of additional compliance costs on business. And it seems that this government truly does not like small business. This government increases red tape on small business. And the report we had in respect of the paperboy tax, the legislation that was more comprehensively dealt with earlier, made the point that there was expected to be increased compliance for many businesses. And we're talking here about people who have cleaning jobs in schools, a few hours a week, don't earn much money, but now businesses are expected to keep their tax affairs close at hand and monitor them. And likewise in this, we're talking about this GST registration requirement in respect and penalty payment GST return in respect of late payments. And here there is a clear parallel. There's increased compliance on business. And the interesting point is that it's not just increased compliance on business that National seems to be putting, it is also reducing at the same time compliance in some other parallel areas. So you're actually increasing the grey economy. It looks like National is trying to increase compliance on some businesses. It's not clear which or why, and there is a cost in that, but it's also encouraging people to avoid paying tax. And in the case of the paperboy tax, we saw that those who had home lawn mowing jobs or babysitting or other similar jobs where there wasn't a record of their payment on an electronic system, that they were exempt from the same tax that those who were on a system were expected to pay. So we have a growing grey economy and an encouragement for people not to be registered with the tax system. And likewise here, what the accountants did say, and I recall this, Mr Parker raised it, the issue of what happens with early payment discount. Well, the advice, as I recall it in Select Committee, was that in fact GST will not be charged in respect of early payment discount. And so here you have early payment discount is not being charged for GST, and then you have late payment penalties being charged for GST. What do you think businesses are going to do? They're going to shift their model to avoid this unnecessary, as they will see it, additional compliance, that the burden of compliance that the government's putting on through this legislation that we're passing through the House right now. So some will get trapped by it, some will have additional compliance costs. This is just a higgledy-piggledy mess in terms of this particular part, this particular clause in the Act. It hasn't been well thought through. We've got early payment discounts on the one hand for businesses that change their paperwork, so basically they're encouraging businesses to shuffle their paper, and we've got late payments being attracting a GST penalty and extra compliance costs. And we can see the parallel with the paperboy tax, where there was a stingy tax grab for those who are on systems where the tax is carefully measured out, and an encouragement for people to have businesses where they are private contractors working in the grey economy and are therefore rewarded for that behaviour in future. Now, it all adds to a pattern, obviously, of a government that doesn't like business. The other point that I mentioned earlier on in respect of Clause 151B, the keeping of records, I pointed out the kind of tinkering. There's a similar one here in 150. This is the level of interest in this legislation. So we see it is a broadening, so it's hard to oppose in this respect. I moved on from the appalling encouragement of the grey economy in the previous clause, but this clause 150 says in section 55 brackets 1 brackets A brackets 3 small i's, multi-rate pie is replaced by multi-rate pie or a look-through company. So again, a worthy change probably, and I will suspect that, we're broadening the tax base a little bit, we're blocking the odd loophole here and there, but that is effectively, Mr Chair, unpicked by those changes in clause 137, where we actually got a new loophole being created at the same time. Mr. Chair,
Dr. David
we're creating a loophole clause. And why would you do that? And my colleague calls out it's a John Banks clause, and he may have a point. We actually see illustrations very clearly before us of why the law needs to be tightened. And indeed, in respect of local campaigning, local elections, the donations law definitely needs to be tightened up. I don't think there's much doubt about that. And if we needed an illustration of that, we've had one today that's playing out slowly and painfully as the Prime Minister tries to excuse one of his ministers from his so-called high ethical standards by way, I will come back to the point, by way of excusing that minister for having not read a report. But you can see what's being happening there is an encouragement of loophole behaviour, an encouragement to look at a particular piece of law and look for the ways out. And that's not a healthy way to have a democracy running. What we need, if we want our economy really to get back on track, is big, proper change. That's actually going to be a gear change for our economy. We've had this tinkering approach from the government for its 4 years that it's been here. We've seen recently that the median wage has dropped 3%. The median wage has dropped 3%. And we've seen, this is ridiculous. We've seen the minimum wage dropping in real terms. We see costs going up. And we see people falling between the cracks. So, this is not a government that's making big change. It's tinkering around with GST in this part. But it is blocking a few loopholes, but at the same time, it's creating new loopholes, Mr. Chair. So we would find that we could be spending our time here better looking at things like pro-growth tax policy. That would really encourage our economy to get ahead, that would encourage money to flow toward businesses rather than towards the activities of compliance, as we see in this part 4 of the legislation, towards actually getting on with smart investment decisions that would gear up our economy and help it to succeed in conditions that up until now have been better than for most people. The Labor government left many years of surpluses. Our trading partners, since 9 years of surpluses, Mr. Cosgrove reminds me, 9 years of surpluses under the Labor government. Our trading partners in China and Australia, our main trading partners, their economies have been going well, and yet in New Zealand our economy is going backwards, and it's because the big changes are not being contemplated in legislation like this. Now, I've talked before in the previous part of this bill about the reasons that might be made, the excuses that might be made for this change not happening, to do with the IRD computer system, struggling, limping along, able to deal with small changes that close the odd loophole here and there, and as we're seeing now, open the odd loophole one side, close one on one hand, open one with the other. But we're not seeing the really big changes, and that's because the IRD computer system, we're told, is not up to it. Those big changes that are needed in the New Zealand economy cannot actually be made because we do not have a computer system capable of dealing with really big changes. And that's why the Prime Minister on Valentine's Day this year made his Valentine's promise to address the IRD computer problems. He said that we should not be held hostage in terms of government policy by having an outdated computer system, but we haven't yet seen the evidence that anything's been done about that. We haven't seen a policy announced or a timetable as to when that computer system will be upgraded, when it will be able to make the really big changes that we need as a country to have an economy, a modern economy that can get ahead. We know that Australia and our other trading partners have, for example, a capital gains tax that would push money towards the productive sector, to support our export industries, because we need export-led growth as a country. But we have in national opposite a party of can't, a party that says no, that's too hard, a party that refuses to make the big changes necessary, a party that is merely closing one loophole with one hand and opening another with the other hand, Mr. Chair.
John Hayes.
Mr. Chair, I move the motion be now put.
Mr. Chairman.
Well, no, I'm going to the Honourable Damien O'Connor.